Good morning. Dumelang. Sanibonani. Goeiemôre. Re kae? Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to receive a cultural performance as a sign of welcoming us, but also take note that we will then, after that cultural performance, begin with our formal program. We're still anticipating some of the invitees and dignitaries to arrive in the next 10 minutes. But whilst we are waiting for them, we want to share some of the cultural performances that are very relevant for today. In short, that's the message I am here to deliver. Thank you. The cultural group that's going to give us a performance is Chief Albert Litude. Some of us have seen them before, and we can't get enough of their teaching and their performances. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Vusitemba Ndima. I am the Deputy Director General responsible for Heritage Promotion and Preservation in the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture. I'm here today because I've been assigned the responsibility of facilitating this program. So let me start by acknowledging all the attendees to this meeting, but also let me also acknowledge all the esteemed members of this community. Mr. Rodriguez from Cuba, Ambassador of Cuba to South Africa, His Excellency Mr. Eric Cuito, Excellency Miss Maria Filomena, members of the diplomatic corps, Chairperson of Freedom Park, National Congress, of the South African Communist Party, Mr. Slapso, Umkhonto wesizwe Liberation War Veterans Commissar Mr. Mbulelo Musi, the Chief Executive Officer of Freedom Park, Chief Executive Officers of government entities, representatives of government departments, invited guests. Ladies and gentlemen, I thought it prudent that I must start by doing these acknowledgements. My role today is to really just facilitate the program where we are commemorating the 35th Southern African Development Community Day of Liberation, where the focus is on the Battle of Cuito Cuanavale. So I wouldn't even dare talk about it because speaker after speakers would be talking about it in a much more efficient way. My role is now to call upon the CEO of Freedom Park to give us a word of welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Program Director, Mr. Vusindima. I would like to start by acknowledging our Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture, who will be joining us in a moment. I would like to greet the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs in Cuba, Mr. Elio Rodriguez Perdomo. I would like to greet the SG of the South African Communist Party, Mr. Solima Paila. I would like to greet Ms. Mkavela, who's representing the ANC. I would like to greet the Ambassador of Angola, Her Excellency Ms. Maria Filomena Delgado, who's within us. Our Ambassador of Cuba. I've noted the many representatives from various embassies of Egypt, of Zimbabwe, of Sudan, of South Sudan, of France, Brazil, and China, who are amongst us. The chairperson of Freedom Park Council, Mam Gabadeli, and my council members who are here amongst us. The CEOs and chairpersons of DSEC entities who are amongst us. The Director of Foreign Affairs Ministry in Cuba, Mr. Luisa Alberto Amoros, Umkhonto wesizwe Liberation War Veterans, National Commissar, Mr. Mbulelo Musi, who's also our council members, the representatives of MPLA, all protocols are observed. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. March 23rd marked 35 years after the Battle of Cuito Cuanavale, and it is the day declared as the SADC Day of Liberation, but also declared as a day of reflection. We are gathered here today at Freedom Park. We celebrate the evidence before us that our freedom from colonial chains came at a price. Freedom Park was conceptualized to honor those who died for freedom and humanity. And we often define Freedom Park in terms of the President Mandela's 1999 speech in April 27, when he says that the day should not be far off when we shall have a people's shrine, a freedom park where we shall honor with all the dignity they deserve those who endured pain, so we should experience the joy of freedom. But sometimes it's also easier to define Freedom Park in terms of the preamble of the Constitution. And I'm happy that the learners from Inkosi Albert Lutuli did that for us. And I'll just quote what they said in their performance, what is enshrined in our Constitution. That we, the people of South Africa, recognize the injustice of the past, honor those who suffered for justice and freedom in our land, respect those who have worked to build and develop our country. And I will close the quotation there. So this is a memorial that presents and celebrates the torturous journey, the sacrifices made for our freedom. And at the same time, it serves as a beacon of hope and inspiration for the future. I'm happy that the former CEO of Freedom Park, Professor Sirot, is amongst us, because he used to say that if in 2,000 years there was a strife in the country, people must come to Freedom Park and find solutions to those conflicts. And that is what we mean by it being a beacon of hope. So that drawing lessons from the past, we need to be able to build a better future. As we are gathered here, within our main memorial, the Wall of Names, we have inscribed over 185,000 names of those who died for freedom and humanity in our land. And of those names, over 2,000 are the Cuban combatants who died on African soil. We will be later on in the program laying the wreath against the Cuban Wall of Names as part of the international solidarity. I think most of us, especially those who are aware about the Cuito Cuanavale battle, will know that it ushered in the freedom of Namibia and South Africa. And therefore, here at Freedom Park, especially our Garden of Remembrance, this is where we challenge visitors to reflect upon our past, to contribute to improve the present so that we can build a better future, a future of peace, stability, and social cohesion. The Battle of Cuito, like many others, is a permanent reminder that our freedom was not free. This commemoration also serves as an opportunity for us as a nation to say thank you to those who were there for us during our hour of need. And we hope that South Africa acknowledges and appreciates those who bequeathed the freedom that we enjoy today. I'm also happy that amongst us are the veterans, some of whom were in Angola And I'm sure we will hear a lot from the veterans themselves as they speak. There is an African proverb that says, until the lion learns how to write, every story will glorify the hunter. And therefore, for us, this is us telling the world who we are, where we come from, and where we want to go. This is us beginning to write our own stories. This is us beginning to charter our way forward. But this is us learning from our past to build a better future. And without being tempted to delve into the nitty-gritties of the subject matter, as there are people who are more qualified to speak about Cuito Cuanavale, I just want to welcome you all here. We are looking forward to learning from all of you, from our veterans and the experts in the subject matter. You are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much for freedom. Through the blood of our martyrs, not only from South Africa, but from other countries like Cuba, Angola, and other parts of the world that partnered with us in our struggle for freedom. So without any further waste of time, can I then introduce Mr., let me not say Mr., in this context, let me introduce Commissar Mbulelo Musi, who is representing Umkhonto weSizwe Liberation War veterans. Over to you, Commissar.
Good afternoon, everybody. I didn't check my time. If it's morning, I apologize. Thanks, Program Director of Ndima, DDG, Department of Arts and Culture. Let me recognize now Mr. Deputy Foreign Minister, recognize the Ambassador of Cuba in South Africa and the entire Cuban entourage. Let me also recognize the Ambassador of Angola and the whole entourage of Angola. Let me recognize all dignitaries from various countries in their different capacities. It will be amiss of me if I do not also single out Ntate Tony Mungalo. May you stand up in that. I recognize him because he was a diplomat par excellence of the African National Congress, who connected us as a chief director, who actually took us when we were young people. And here I still standing strong in front of me and still saying international solidarity is an integral part of the policy objects of the African National Congress. Thank you, Ratoni. Let me say all protocol observed. And I say it with humility and respect. I recognize the minister in absentia. Hopefully he'll come. Even if he doesn't come, the gesture on its own says he's with us. I recognize you, Chairperson Mam Kabateli of Freedom Park Council. Comrades and friends, I'll be very brief. I've got 5 minutes. I want to start by saying, for some of us who grew up under the wings and the actual protection and even growth of the Cuban people and the Angolan people. Always when we meet with them for their occasion, it's quite a humbling occasion. It is not feeling like we're welcoming foreigners. We feel like we're welcoming those who were to us, some of them fathers, aunts, who took care of us in the worst of times. And as we celebrate 35 years of an epoch-making event, the Battle of Cuito Cuanavale, memories come back. People came to know about Angolan and Cuban heroic feats after that battle in South Africa. Many didn't know. Let me remind us, this relationship at the Battle of Cuito Cuanavale was a climax. The first time I touched an AK-47 and felt like crying was in 1976 in a camp called Engineering in Luanda. And it was a Cuban comrade who said, I can see, I was enthusiastic just to touch it. And he said, Bump. Now when I was still a bit young, it was a folding part, very easy to carry. But I felt heavy. That's where it comes from. It started with that touch. I nearly kissed an AK-47. Because I had left the country, we were fighting the enemy with stones, with dustbin lids. Here I'm getting something that is going to respond. Because you'll recall at the time we left in 1976, after the uprisings, our country was on fire. We had stood up and said enough is enough. I was part of that group of students who said, we fought with stones, now we've got AK-47s in Angola. We're going to be trained by the Cubans and the Angolans. Thank you very much. So it is to narrow a very great history when we take it only in 1988. In 1976, Deputy Minister, there's a camp in the south of Angola. We used to call it Nova Katenge. Some called it the University of Mkondo Wesizwe. When the invasion took place and they killed the people of Angola in the south, in a province called Luambo, 2 Canberras came from that operation where they massacred many Namibians and came and attacked our camp in Ekatenge. They killed few comrades and 1 Cuban. That's when we started shedding real blood with the Cubans. So it doesn't start in Cuito Cuanavale. From then on, our history, our relationship was forged in the crucible of blood and sweat. Was never a relationship just of diplomatic relationship. We fought in the trenches. And we saw how the Cuban can look this side, you look this side, and he will die for you, and you're not afraid that, hey, this man is going to give me away. That's the type of relationship we're celebrating today. They didn't stop there in the south. We had 2 fronts where we were fighting the UNITA surrogates of Americans. In the Eastern Front and the Northern Front, which was east of Luanda and the north of Luanda. There we were tried and tested. Our relationship and its endurance was put to test. And I can say, Ambassador of Angola, I can say, Deputy Minister, you passed the test with distinction. in building our relationship. So I came here to say thank you for all the sacrifices. We have not come here to mourn. We've come to celebrate heroism at its best. So the Battle of Cuito Cuanavale was a culmination of many years of relationships that were started by Castro, by Oliver Tambo, by Agostinho Neto, long before even us came. So in us teaching the South Africans and the world, we are not doing justice when we think about only one battle. And therefore I'm suggesting, humbly so, that let's take a comprehensive view of history. Because our children and children's children and generations to come must know history in its totality. I'm saying this because I want to also close by saying, I don't think we've done enough to show how much we appreciate what Angola and Cuba have done for us. I'm challenging South Africans to begin to strengthen all the three pillars that underpin foreign policy trajectory. The one being state to state, the one being people to people. That's the one we're interested in. We are trying to think about an idea. I think I raised it with you, Eduardo, from Angola, that we want a relationship with military veterans of Cuba so that the history is alive. We want the relationship with the Angolans because the history is alive. I'm also a bit jealous. As somebody who survived the 1981 massacre in Matola, we want a relationship with the Mozambicans that is actually institutionalized. Then our children will know, oh, this is where my father comes from. The infrastructure we build there will tell them that this freedom was not free. It came at a cost, not only for South Africans, but for the world, especially Cuba and Angola. Lastly, it would be amiss of me if I don't mention two things. One, yesterday I was in a place called Davidton. In Davidton, they are starting the heritage program. I was invited to speak about one of the many massacres they experienced, where on the 23rd, 12 people were massacred by the SADF and Ingat. I want, when we connect these relationships internationally, we should also connect with communities. Not just meet here. The pep talk of our chairperson is, let's have people-to-people relations. The last one then obviously will be, we see the world is changing. It's important that we strengthen our trade, economic and otherwise, so that we're able to make our people live a better life. I want to address a certain lunatic who had audacity recently in a press conference and insinuate that our first commander-in-chief can I proceed? I don't think everybody will stand up just for one poll. Okay, thanks, Comrade Vos. I'm closing by saying I'm still not well, I'm sorry for that, but I couldn't miss this for anything. I'm listening to television. I hear one lunatic calling himself a leader, saying or insinuating that our longest serving commander-in-chief after Nelson Mandela, Oliver Reginald Tambo, he was insinuating that O.R. Tambo was a spy of the British. I've never felt so insulted. He went further and said, MK were nothing else but drunks. I want to tell you, Julius, if you don't even know the meaning of drunk in a dictionary, we are free to be there to lecture you. Stop talk nonsense among us and the world about leaders who are respected across the spectrum of society. As Umkhonto weSizwe Liberation War veterans, we want to say, down with your rhetoric that is deceiving our people, down. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Commissar, for reminding us of those bonds of friendship that exist between us in Angola and Cuba. Esteemed delegates, let me apologize. There is something that I forgot to do in the beginning. I think maybe it's because of nerves. We didn't sing the national anthems, the AU anthem as well as the South African anthem. Let's correct that. But my sincerest apologies. We'll start with the South African national anthem, and then it will be followed by an AU anthem. Thank you.
Sigeleni Afrika, maluphakanyiswa upololwayo, izwa imithandazo yethu. Nkosi sigelela thina, lusapho lwayo, murena buluka sitshaba sa Yesu. Felice dintwale maswenye, usibuluke, sitshaba sa Yesu, sitshaba sa South Africa, South Africa. Let it go for Lord, say amen. Let it deep
anthem, please.
Let us all unite and celebrate together the victories won for our liberation. Let us dedicate ourselves to rise together to defend our liberty and unity. Oh, sons and daughters.
you very much. We can get seated. Thank you very much for that. Can we then call upon the representative of the African National Congress, Ms. Mkabela, to provide a message of support, and then also after that rendition, we will have the message of support from the South African Communist Party. The General Secretary is here, Mr. Solima Paila. Can I then call on stage Ms. Mkabela? So when I got the note here, my apologies. I was given Miss. I was not meaning to change your gender. Sorry about that. This is Mr. Mkabela. Mr. Mkabela, please take the floor. Thank you.
Comrades and friends, as the ANC in Gauteng, we'd like to greet all of you. My brother and leader, Mbulelo Musi, we appreciate the effort and the sacrifice that you have put on the struggling. We are mostly grateful to still be able to walk with this earth with you. Some of the comrades that you were with in the battles did not make it. But we are forever grateful that you are still here with us. Your Excellencies, Ambassador of Cuba, a very good and great friend of the ANC, Ambassador of Angola, the Secretary General of the SACP, and would like to greet all their excellencies who are here, the dignitaries, and the comrades and friends who have made it to commemorate this day. Because to us as the ANC, as the leader of society, it is very important to keep the ties, to keep the friendship, the bond of the history that has been created throughout our struggles. And as the ANC, we are not going to let go of the good relationship that we have with MPLA from Angola, of the good relations that we have with Cuba. On the Battle of Cuito Cuanavale in 1987, we had comrades from Vietnam. We had comrades from the USSR, which is the Soviet Union. We had comrades from Angola. We had our comrades from Namibia, SWAPO, and our comrades from the MKVA, the military veterans. More than 3, and the birth was near. That Battle of Cuito Cuanavale was the landmark that rang freedom. And even though in 2002, the MPLA was able to be victorious, but the Battle of Cuito Cuanavale showed the world what courage as African people we have, what courage as the free world that we have to fight against the Western imperialists. So today as the ANC, we are very proud of the relationships that are ongoing with Angola. Jota Mpila, our youthful comrades, were always in constant dialogue with them, trying to tackle the challenge societies. We're in constant contact with our comrades from Cuba, looking at the similarities, trying to identify the current problems that are facing us as young people and as the people of the world. Looking at the common problems and ultimately trying to find the common solutions. My dear comrades, I'd like to believe that this day, and furthermore to strengthen our bond, because we all know that we are not free yet. We are not totally free. And as the comrades have done in the Battle of Cuito Cuanavale, they came together. I can report and say it was a lost cause. But here we are today. We've gained our independence. Here we are today. We are able to sit together side by side as brothers and sisters. Here we are today. We are still together, recognizing the same common enemy, which is imperialism. And we cannot break those bonds. We cannot break those bonds. This calls for us as a people. Let us take up arms. Let us join together. Let us stand strong. Equality in our societies. Let us stay together and fight together. From the African National Congress, I'd like to thank for this platform that you have afforded us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mukabela, for those words of just reminding us that the battlefield today, it's not necessarily in terms of military warfare, but now the battlefield is how we deal with matters of economy, how we deal with issues of technology, ideas, so that we become even much more better than we were before we were liberated. Thank you so much for that. And I will then be calling upon the General Secretary of the South African Communist Party, Mr. Soli Mapaila, after which we will also have the message of support from the MPLA. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Good day, ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends. Let me greet especially the dignitaries, the leadership of the Freedom Park, particularly the chairperson, Umam Mkabateli, Umam Sengiwe, and the CEO, Umam Mufumadi, and Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Comrade Godwa. Hope you'll be joining us soon. And ambassadors present here from different countries, especially Ambassador of Angola, Comrade Eduardo, of Cuba, Comrade Enrique, as well as the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs from Cuba, Comrade Rodriguez, and comrades from SWAPO and MPLA, the leadership of the ANC, Comrade Mkabela, and Comrade Mbulelo Musi from Umkhonto weSizwe Liberation War Veterans, for which, Commissar, I was a proud soldier of this glorious People's Army. We all know apology for taking up arms to fight for the freedom of our people. It doesn't matter those who condemn us in public after our sacrifices have given them the freedom that they enjoy today, including the freedom to attack us. But let me say, so that I'm much more clearer on this point, I did not hear this statement that Commissar Musi is talking about. But I dare say, if it was said, it must be rebuked with the strongest terms possible, because such can never be close to the truth. And in any case, I'll just advise someone like Malema, Julius, if he wants to know the history of MK, its operations, there are those that have been documented through the courts in our country, in which many of our comrades were tried and sentenced to prison after some of the operations. A comrade, Tula Simpson, has written a book on Umkhonto weSizwe. That book was literally a translation of court records, analysis of court records and several activities that have taken place, and many other MK machineries that operated inside the country. And there are many other books written by our comrades who participated in different parts of our liberation war, particularly in Umkhonto weSizwe, that he can understand what Umkhonto weSizwe was about. This is a people's army that made great sacrifices in the front lines of the battles against the apartheid regime, and most of our comrades, including some of my personal friends, are lie buried in countries outside South Africa. So to attack them and call Umkhonto weSizwe members drunkards is the most despicable thing I can ever hear. I don't think it was said, but because it is said by Commissar Musi, I'm shocked to the bone. This is disgraceful. And in any case, even the attack on President OR, here is a man, Professor Wallace Rote. He wrote recently a simple book that when I read, I shed a tear, Babs Rote. The book called Sekatlela OR, paying tribute to President Oliver Tambo. It's a simple, single poem about this great leader of our people. If he dares read, he must read that simple poem, Gabab Surote, to understand who President Oliver Tambo was. You can never take away from President Oliver Tambo. His sacrifices were the embodiment of our own sacrifices. And we can never doubt him, not an inch. But who will doubt Julius himself, who today, as we can see, is leading a counter-revolutionary offensive against our democratic government. This populism that is leading in our country is what really must be confronted, not attack on our leaders like President Oliver Tambo. Let me indicate that, just as a tribute to this occasion, to thank the people of Angola that has given us so much sacrifices for the liberation of our region. Angola was a country that opened up itself to MK, to SWAPO, to other liberation forces to prepare themselves to execute the struggle for their liberation. Angola, I don't think there's anyone like it on the continent. There are many. We will know about Tanzania. We will know about Luanda, Zambia. But like we used to sing, Angola, your thick bushes prepared us for the battles that we carried to liberate our people. No country can ever be like that country, a special country of our continent. You have given us so much to the freedoms that we enjoy today. We want to thank you so much. We want to thank Cuba. Cuba, consciously, there's no revolution anywhere else in the world that has given itself to humanity than the Cuban Revolution. A small, tiny island that has committed itself to the cause of humanity, that has shared its last resources for the liberation of others. When ultimately Cuito Cuanavale came, Cuba had already sent 35,000 soldiers, both military and non-military personnel, in the war to defend the liberation of Angola, as we know, to lay the basis for the subsequent liberation of Namibia and our own liberation. No country has ever done that. Fidel Castro worked 22 hours a day, literally, to oversee that operation, because that operation was top range, that itself had actually weakened the Cuban Revolution in terms of its security. So, as the leading force of the Cuban revolutionaries, he had to undertake responsibilities to command the war. And of course, if you read one of our scholars, Piro Iglesias, who has written extensively on Cuba, Africa, and Washington in terms of foreign relations, and has written 2 volumes in this regard, he had actually indicated the initial reluctance of Cubans to come in on Angola after the disappointment of Congo. They had focused themselves in Guinea-Bissau to support the liberation war there. And when Che Guevara came down to Zaire, as well as the Cuban team led by my father in Cuba, Comrade Ponteferro, is my adopted father, Babsirote. He led, together with the late Risquet, he was the doctor of that unit, the Congo-Brazzaville unit. Cuba had actually doubted whether the African Revolution can be assisted to that extent. You will remember their first engagement in the defense of the Algerian Revolution. So that's why Fidel had to work 22 hours a day to make sure that this mission ultimately, after his engagement with Agostinho Neto, that this mission in Angola does not fail. They've continued to do so. Even recently, when the world was faced with COVID, it is the Cuban doctors that went all over the world, including in Europe, in Spain, in Italy, which were the most affected in Europe by COVID-19. They were saved by the Cuban doctors. The same when Africa was faced with Ebola. It was this Cuban contingent that went in. So the Cubans, as a revolution, as a country, is a country that represents what humanity should be. That is why our solidarity with Cuba is unshakable and will remain. We want to thank Cubans for their solidarity with our people, and in particular with the African Liberation Forces. Let me take this opportunity to thank the Freedom Park Monument and its entire leadership for not failing to organize this particular event every year to remind us where we come from. In fact, as you know, Mam Kabateli, this to us, it's our #1 monument, the monument of freedom, the monument of sacrifices. Oba Mongalo and other dignitaries and ambassadors and many leaders of our movement who are here, I think they feel humbled to know that their own contributions, which represent many centuries of struggles of our people, that they fought contributing each chapter to the period that we are in today. I still want to pay a special tribute here to our own generals, or General Mavumengwana of Isandlwana. Our children must know about this history, as Commissar Musi says. This is our #1 monument. We appreciate how you are keeping it, how we are not allowing it to be subsumed, even though we know that sometimes many major government events are not taking place here. And that attitude has to change, because this is the symbol of the sacrifices of our own people. Thank you very much. Amandla, long live solidarity, long live.
Thank you very much, General Secretary of the South African Communist Party, for all the words, kind words that you have shared with us, and also for education that you have given us about all these battles that were fought and which brought us to where we are today, even battles that were preceded by the Battle of Cuito Cuanavale. And thanks a lot for just jogging our memories about all those struggles that were fought so that we are free and we are here today celebrating. Now, I would be calling upon, let me just call upon Mr. Adams Quetta from the MPLA. Immediately after he speaks, I would request that the Chief Albert Lutuli Choir be ready to come on stage. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Program Director. Honorable Zizikolo, Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture of the Republic of South Africa, in absentia. Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Cuba, Ambassador of the Republic of Cuba in the Republic of South Africa, Ambassador Filomena Delgado, Encontros war veterans, representatives of the ANC, SG of the SACP, members. Allow me to firstly wish all the ladies in attendance a special International Women's Month. Cuito Cuanavale, the MPLA, People's Movement for the Liberation of Angola, committee of the Angolan community in South Africa, wishes to pay tribute and convey a congratulatory message to the glorious armed forces, FAR, at the time called the Fapula, for the resounding victory in the Battle of Cuito Cuanavale between December 1987 and March 1988, which dictated the end of the apartheid era in South Africa. The relevance of the Battle of Cuito Cuanavale transcends the borders of Angola. Its effects were felt way beyond the Angolan territory. It marked Angola and the Southern Africa's defeat of the racist, segregationist, and brutal apartheid regime. It was indeed the final blow. Today, Africa enjoys freedom from apartheid, which at the time oppressed the legitimate wishes and aspirations of the peoples of the Southern Africa in particular, but the whole of Africa in general. Cuito Cuanavale was the largest military battle that took place in the African continent south of the Sahara since World War II. It was the last battle of the Cold War, which was bravely won by the then Fapula, whose troops resisted a more than 60-day-long siege. It was the symbol of determination of our people, the willingness to win or die for the defense of the homeland, its sovereignty and territorial integrity. We wish also to acknowledge and thank the unquestionable support of the Republic of Cuba and the then Soviet Union against this foreign aggression whose sons shed their blood on our homeland. As such, the MPLA Party Committee of the Angolan community in South Africa, on behalf of all Angolans in this country, salutes this victory and applauds the selfless heroes who took part in this bloody battle that changed the course of history in Angola, Africa, and the world. The outcome of the Battle of Cuito Cuanavale decisively opened the doors for the independence of Namibia, the release of Nelson Mandela, and concurrently saw South Africa become a multi-party, multiracial democracy, thus paving the way for peace and political and economic stability throughout the region. I thank you.
Communist Party, President of Council of States and of Government of Angola, Cuba, Namibia, South Africa, and all other parts of Africa, President of the Socialist Republic, our Commander-in-Chief, Angolan and Cuban internationalists who have done so much to free our continent, Cuban people, comrades, and friends, we greet you. The Battle of Cuito Cuanavale proves that David will still defeat Goliath in the 21st century. Today we pay tribute to the great men of Angola, Cuba, Namibia, women, children, orphans, and widows. The Battle of Cuito Cuanavale was a bloody confrontation which took place during the full theories of the Cold War.
Angola defeated South Africa's regular armed forces, the most powerful in the region.
The apartheid regime in South Africa was losing its grip, and later it came to an end, being replaced by a democratic lawful regime.
Political ideologies between socialism and capitalism.
It is a great honor to be present here today, especially on an important day in the revolutionary history of Angola. Today we have listened to the message of Commander-in-Chief Fidel Castro. We should like to pay tribute to his revolutionary dedication to the cause of the ordinary man.
An outstanding leader whose name has become a household name, certainly among people who are struggling against imperialism, colonialism, and all these vices. Certainly among people who, like the Cuban people, are conducting armed struggles for the liberation of their countries and their people. We have always been inspired by the mere mention of this name. We welcome the support which has been extended to the PLO. The same kind of support has been extended to the people of Zimbabwe, who have been terrorized by a small minority of racists, supported by mercenaries and by the imperialist powers, who have unnecessarily had to sacrifice thousands of their men, children, and women.
Fighting against a regime that has no case whatsoever, whose only basis for continued existence as it continues to exist, it is that it is supported by imperialism by the great powers of West.
President Fidel is the last to yield to any pressures from any quarter of the globe. To suggest that Cuba might be a puppet to the Soviet Union is to insult the very concept of independence. To suggest that no one, no country, no leader, no people who fought for independence are capable of independence.
Angola and Cuba crimes. Socialist countries, revolutionary countries, friends of socialist countries are precisely the crime of the national liberation movement. It is a crime to have friends who support you, who respond to your request, who are ready to die with you in the struggle against imperialism. It is a crime even to liberate yourself. We in South Africa and Southern Africa, we as members of the liberation movement, would like today to salute this hero of the liberation struggle, this hero of the people.
Your presence in the reinforcement of your forces in the Battle of Cuito Cuanavale was truly historic significance. The crushed defeat of racist army at Cuito Cuanavale was a victory for the whole of Africa.
The overwhelming defeat of the racist army at Cuito Cuanavale provided the possibilities for Angola to enjoy peace and consolidate its own sovereignty. The defeat of the racist army allowed the struggling people of Namibia to finally win their independence. The decisive defeat of the apartheid aggressors broke the myth of the invincibility of the white oppressor. The defeat of the apartheid army was an inspiration to the struggling people inside South Africa. The defeat of the racist army at Cuito Cuanavale has made it possible for me to be here today.
Cuito Cuanavale has been a turning point in the struggle to free the continent and our country from the scourge of apartheid.
If it wasn't for Cuito Cuanavale, I wouldn't be standing here today celebrating the freedom and the fruits of democracy in my country. Cuito Cuanavale was a milestone in the history of the struggle for the Southern African liberation. This is a fight to the capitalists. Yes! We do not want the oppressor to occupy our motherland. Yes! South Africans and Namibians are here to sustain the very same possibility by incorporating within the Soviet spirit. Yes! Us fighting capitalism, them fighting capitalism was a weapon to defeat the apartheid government. Yes, yes, yes! Yes, yes, yes! Yes, yes, yes! I, Patrice Lumumba, history will one day have its say, but it will not be the history that Brussels, Paris, Washington, or the United Nations will teach, but that which they will teach in the countries emancipated from colonialism and its puppets, a history of glory and dignity. Yes!
Patrice Lumumba, without dignity there is no liberty, without justice there is no dignity, and without independence there are no free men.
Yes!
I, Fidel Castro. A revolution is not a bed of roses. A revolution is a struggle to the death between the past and the future.
Yes!
I, Wanekurume. Freedom is not something that one person can bestow on another as a gift. They claim it as their own and none can keep it from them.
Yes!
I,
Wanekurume. It is far easier for the proverbial camel to pass through the nearest eye, help and all than for an eastward colonial administration to give sound and hope counsel of a liberated territory.
Yes!
I, Patrice Lumumba, we are co-authors of our own misfortunes. We elect hyenas to take care of our goats, and when the goats are consumed, we wonder why.
Yes!
I, Thomas Sankara. Knowledge is not enough to change the conditions of black people. Understand that we need to create programs and systems that will empower us economically, spiritually, and mentally. We need courage and action.
Yes! I, Thomas Sankara.
Comrades, there is no true social revolution without the liberation of women.
Yes! I, Thomas Sankara. Imperialism is a system of exploitation that occurs not only in the brutal form of those who come with guns to conquer territory. Imperialism often occurs in more subtle form. Alone, food aid, blackmail. We are fighting the system that allows a handful of men on earth to rule all of humanity. Those who know must teach. An educated black man with no sense of his history is more dangerous than a terrorist. He will kill his people while protecting supremacy just because he has been miseducated. It is better to be an illiterate than to have education without knowing your history. Those who know must teach. To build a new Africa, we must constantly work to create a new Africa. Today's African is orientated more towards breaking Africa than building her. We no longer want to live in the imaginary world of others. Those who know must teach.
We are coming together to build the Africa of our dreams for ourselves and our generations. It is for Africans to build Africa or to have Africa taken away from us by any other.
Those who know must teach.
We meet here today to rededicate ourselves to the cause of Africa, to establish contact beyond the grave with the great African heroes and assure them that their struggle
was not in vain. Those who know must teach.
I, Miriam Makeba. The conqueror writes history. They came, they conquered, and they wrote. Now, how do you expect people who came to invade us to write the truth about us? They will always write negative things about us. They have to do that because they have to justify their invasion. We do not write our history. It is handed over to us orally by our elders. In fact, you do not know anything about any place until a white man gets there. Until a white man comes to you and says, poof, you exist, I have discovered you, and now you may live, which is ridiculous.
Those who know must rise. We shall no longer sit, pray, and hope for the transformation of Africa. Our generation and all generations to come shall come together in unity and in determination to rebuild the broken Africa. This is a long journey that needs time and everyone's contribution. So if you find yourself here, know that you are here for a purpose and you carry responsibility to give your service to rebuild the broken Africa. Those who know must teach.
Thank you very much to, maybe let me just start by thanking Mr. Adam Quetta for a very good input that he made. And let me also thank the choir or the Chief Alberto Tutuli School for a very good rendition, which is not just only entertaining, but also educating. It really shows that this country is in good hands. If you have got young kids who know history so much, who understand that nobody can claim to have discovered us, as we were being told the voyages of discovery, where certain people were discovering us. So you have got kids who know that, because it begins here. You can only claim your space if you know your history. You can fight the battles of today if you know your history. So that's why I'm saying thank you so much to these kids who know their history. They are leaders of today and they are leaders of tomorrow. Thank you so much. Now, I would like to call upon Councillor Eduardo Hodua from the Embassy of the Republic of Angola to come and address us.
Thank you very much, Masters of Ceremonies. Honorable Minister Zizi Kodwa, Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture of the Republic of South Africa in absentia. Honorable Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Cuba. His Excellency Ambassador Maria Filomena Delgado, Ambassador of Cuba, members of Diplomatic Corps, friends from Munkonto Wesizwe, war liberation, war veterans, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. We are gathered here today at this significant place, Freedom Park in Pretoria, to commemorate a very remarkable battle in our history, the Battle of Cuito Cuanavale. It is an occasion to reflect and remind ourselves of the long way we have walked together as children of the Africa, from the liberation struggles to the era of democracy. The Battle of Cuito Cuanavale, it was a war. Where there is a battle, there is no peace. Yes, there are death, tears, exodus of the innocent population, women and children. There's misery, suffering, and there's no development. But we want to emphasize the magnitude of the Battle of Cuito Cuanavale because of the political results it produced in our region. The result of this battle triggered the unblocking and implementation of the UN Security Council Resolution 435, leading to the independence of Namibia. Following the signing of agreements in December 1988 in New York by the governments of Angola, Cuba, and the then South African apartheid regime. This was the most expressive evolution of the last battlefront of the Cold War, a supposedly atypical conflict between the capitalist West, led by the United States of America, and the Eastern Bloc, led by the former Soviet Union. The Battle of Cuito Cuanavale was one of the most gory during the Cold War, opposing the Angolan government armed forces, FAPLA, commanded by the then commander of Angolan armed forces, FAPLA, the President José Eduardo Santos, who replaced Agostinho Neto in a very difficult moment. Supported by our compañeros cubanos internacionalistas, led by El Comandante Fidel Castro and the Russian advisors, against the UNITA armed wing, FALA, supported by the apartheid regime army, trying to create a tampon zone in the Angolan territory and maintain their hegemony in the region, and the oppression of the genuine owners of this land, South Africa. Invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, the Cuito Cuanavale battle gave a big lesson to those who thought they were in political stability, peace, and paving the way for the multi-party democracy and the social economic development and prosperity of the South African majority. With the Cuito from the colonial yoke, racism and imperialism and oppression during the longest military confrontation in the Southern Africa, Angolians, Cubans, Russians, Namibians, and South Africans, whose names we can find at the Wall of Names here in Freedom Park. Allow me, as I was saying, to request all of us to stand up and observe 1 minute of silence in their memory and honor and for the peace and prosperity of our region. I thank you. Today, the Republic of Angola and the Republic of South Africa maintain friendly relationship, have signed cooperation and bilateral protocols and agreements in various areas, and the two countries are united in the framework of SADC and other. And our main goal is now to develop our economic ties. As Comrade Mbulelo Musi was saying, because politically we are together, we need also to improve the relationship between our people. We must move. South Africans must go to Angola, Angolians to South Africa. Angolians are enjoying part of these results of Cuito Cuanavale battle that gave independence to South Africa. Because we have a lot of Angolians staying in South Africa, coming to South Africa for medical attention, for scholarship, etc., etc. So we are very grateful to South African people and grateful also to the Freedom Park for organizing every year this activity that is a proud for us, all Africans and Angolians, South Africans and Namibians. A luta continua, a vitória é certa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for that very excellent input, but also just for stressing to us today that those battles were fought, blood was shed, tears were shed for us to be where we are. Now we need to start moving forward in a great way in terms of looking at economic development, education, and everything that will make us better. So thank you very much for that. And can I now call upon His Excellency, Enrique Otta Gonzalez, the Ambassador of the Republic of Cuba.
Thank you, Program Director. Dumela to everyone. First of all, I'd like to recognize the presence of everybody here today in this gathering. First of all, thank you to our AUSI, Mdagabeli, the chairperson of the Freedom Park, Ms. Jane Mufamadi, CEO of the Freedom Park, Elio Rodriguez Perdomo, the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Cuba, Conrad Solima Paila, General Secretary of the South African Communist Party, Conrad Musi from Enkutu Sesiwe, colleagues from the rest of the Embassy and Diplomatic Corps that is present here today, representatives from MPLA, Conrad represented ANC and the Friends of Cuba Society Focus. Special recognition to all the Cuban cooperators and collaborators who are here today. Many of them were part of that big contingent of more than 300,000 Cubans who were in Angola. One of them himself was the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs. Dear friends, comrades, 35 years have passed since the tiny and forgotten town of Cuito Cuanavale was a witness and an actor of the largest military battle in Africa. A breathtaking offensive was launched towards the Namibian border with the participation of a joint forces from Angolans, Cubans, and SWAPO combatants. The troops went south of Angola to attack from the southwest in direction to Namibia. Meanwhile, 800 kilometers to the east, select Cuban units advanced towards Cuito Cuanavale, and there they prepared a deadly trap for the powerful South African racist forces that were advancing. The objective was not only defend Cuito, it was to expel the South African defense forces from Angola once and for all. Commander-in-Chief Fidel Castro, who was running the military battles there from Cuba, described later this strategy to the leader of the South African Communist Party, Joe Lobo, in this way. I open quotations. Cuba would stop South African onslaught in Cuito and then attack in another direction, like the boxer who keeps the opponent with the left hand and hits him with the right one. I close quotation. Several months of joint resistance in intense combats made the South African racists bite the dust of the defeats that March 23, 1988. This heroic resistance, together with the unstoppable advance to the west along the southern line, forced the army of the opprobrious apartheid regime to back down, forced that regime to forget his arrogance and to sit down to negotiate at the table and sign peace. The invading troops were unable to break the resistance, courage, determination, and bravery of the Cubans, Angolans, some members of the MK, and SWAPO forces. After the victory of the FAPLA, the Popular Armed Force for the Liberation of Angola, together with the Cubans, Namibians, and South African internationalists, that remote and disremembered town became a symbol of resistance and courage. The best tribute to the people of Africa and to all who gave their life fighting for the independence is to continue transmitting generation for generation, from generation to generations, the historical facts of the internationalist epic, and not let these beautiful pages of self-sacrifices and solidarity be forgotten over time. May this event serve to pay tribute to all the African people who have suffered since slavery barbarism, to our brothers and sisters from civil and military internationalist missions who defend honor and independence. In particular, our eternal gratitude to those who fell convinced that their sacrifice was not in vain. Long live to the heroes and heroes of Cuito Cuanavale. Long live to the internationalists. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for those wise words that you have shared with us. And I am expecting the choir, the Chief Alberto Tuli choir, in terms of my program. You are supposed to be doing some rendition. You seem to be surprised. Just the look in your faces. You seem to be surprised, but of course we can proceed if you're not ready. And then maybe just also to take this opportunity to apologize on behalf of our minister who is unable to come, but has assigned our Deputy Director General, Ms. Mandisa Chikwatamba, to come and deliver the message that the minister was going to present today. So without any further waste of time, can you please take the floor, Ms. Chikwatamba? Thank you.
A very good afternoon to everybody. As already indicated, my name is Mandisa Chikwatamba. I'm one of the Deputy Directors General in the department. I have been assigned today to read the speech of our minister. I'm sure the reading of this speech is going to be a testament to the fact that minister indeed had planned to be here. For those that are closer to us, we have already indicated that in the morning we came here knowing he was not very well, but we were still hopeful that he was going to be able to join us. But I think as the day matured, what has been troubling him, it kind of matured as well. So I first want to say apologies that I am standing here and not minister standing in front of you. But as I said, the presentation in the form of the speech that I have, indeed, it is going to represent him letter by letter, line by line, paragraph by paragraph. I first want to thank the program director, Mr. Vusitemba Ndima, for leading the deliberations and the proceedings of the day until this hour. And I want to say to all esteemed speakers who are participating in this program, I am also thankful that you have agreed to join this program and be part of the deliberations that we are making. On this note, I want to send special greetings to the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, His Excellency, Mr. Elio Reders Pedemo from Cuba, Ambassador of Cuba to South Africa, His Excellency, Mr. Ekene Otto Gonzalez, Ambassador of Angola to South Africa, Her Excellency, Me Maria Filomena, members of the diplomatic corps that are around here. I also want to further thank the chairperson of the Freedom Park, Ms. Hlengiwe Mkabateli, for being part of the leadership that coordinated this event of today. And I send special greetings to her. Of course, accompanied by the Chief Executive Officer of the Freedom Park, Mayor Jane Mufamadi. Thank you very much for working closely with the department, organizing all the events that take place here at the Freedom Park, like the event of today. Chairpersons of other entities under the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture, but all that are coming from government, I am also speaking to them in greetings as I acknowledge the CEOs as well as the chairpersons from other entities that could be here. All the representatives of political parties that are here, especially the African National Congress representatives, the representatives of the South African Communist Party, the representatives of the West African People's Organization, Umkhonto weSizwe, Liberation War Veterans Commissioner Mr. Mulelo Musi, representatives of government, as I have already mentioned. I want to come back to this one. When I say government, I want to also acknowledge the part that is played by DECO in organizing these events. Invited guests that you are here, it is an honor for us that you have heeded to the call of the invitation for you to be part of this gathering. Ladies and gentlemen, we have gathered here today at the Freedom Park in Tshwane after 30 years of what we know to be the Battle of Cuito Cuanavale. The Battle of Cuito Cuanavale was the climax of the war that took place in Angola, instigated by apartheid and its regime and its powers in 1987 to 1988. On the one side of the revolutionary forces was the People's Armed Forces for the Liberation of Angola, FAPLA, the People's Liberation Army of Namibia, PLAN, Umkhonto weSizwe, MK, supported mainly by the Cuban Armed Forces and the Soviet-Russian combatants. On the other side of the reactionary forces was the National Union for Total Independence of Angola, UNITA, aided by the apartheid South African Defense Force, SADF, and the United States of America's Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA. The triumph of the revolutionary forces against their reactionary foes on the 23rd of March 1988 represented a watershed for the liberation struggle for in the Southern Africa region. It is not only marked, it did not only mark the decisive defeat of the South African Defense Force and its apartheid system, but it also looked at this, which was called and declared as a crime against humanity, and said it will come to an end. The withdrawal of the South African Defense Force from the war-torn region and the sovereign independence of the Republic of Angola under MPLA, but also paved the way for the subsequent independence of Namibia under SWAPO and the dawn of freedom, humanity, and democracy in South Africa under the ANC-led government. It is for this reason that our own South African international icon, Dr. Oliver Tambo, aptly remarked, Pretoria's attempt to inflict a decisive defeat on the Angolan government forces at Cuito Cuanavale ended in the humiliation of SADF, its ignominious retreat from Angola, and the collapse of Botha-Malan dreams in that area. Indeed, the defense of Cuito Cuanavale will go down as the historic turning point in Southern Africa, and quite conceivably as Pretoria's Waterloo. The success that was obtained in this battle constituted a historic turning point in the struggle for the total liberation of the region from the racist rule and aggression as constantly captured by the quote above. Fidel Castro, whose Cuban forces were instrumental in assisting the Angolan government, stated that the history of South Africa will come to be written and before and after Cuito Cuanavale. El Comandante Castro also showed quite pride in this achievement, demonstrating a deep understanding of the situation. Behind this singular achievement was outstanding military acumen. He was not the gambler depicted by our detractors. In acknowledging the role the Cubans played, President Mandela remarked, Cubans came to our region as doctors, teachers, soldiers, agricultural experts, but never as colonizers. They have shared the same trenches with us in the struggle against colonialism, underdevelopment, and apartheid. Hundreds of Cubans have given their lives literally in the struggle that was first and foremost not theirs, but ours. As South Africans and as Southern Africa, we salute them. We vow never to forget this unapparelled example of selflessness in internationalism. It is amazing that a remote, small, and such a small town like Cuito Cuanavale, near the confluence of two rivers that constitute its name, unknown to the outside world before the battle, could bring about peace, freedom, and progress to the region of Southern African Development Community. A small town where history dramatically turned in favor of the democratic forces. This town is so remote that the Portuguese refer to it as the last land and the end of earth. At this battle, apartheid South Africa was deceived by its own propaganda in their operational planning and execution. The South Africans were not aware that the forces of history had shifted against the ideas of white supremacy. It is fitting tribute that at Freedom Park in Tshwane today, the name of 2,070 Cuban soldiers who fell in Angola between 1975 and 1988 are inscribed along those of the South African revolutionaries who died during the decades of the long liberation struggle. Those patriots and the internationalists were motivated by a single goal: the end of an oppressive racial rule and genuine African independence. After 13 years defending Angolan sovereignty, the Cubans took nothing home except the mortal remains of their fallen comrades and Africa's gratitude for the service they have rendered to humanity. Following the significance of Cuito Cuanavale for the whole of Southern Africa, the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture and its counterpart in the Republic of Angola took the initiative by jointly signing the ministerial agreement and program of cooperation in Luanda, Angola on the 10th to the 13th of April 2018. This program of action declared 23rd March as a day of reflection to be commemorated by the entire Southern African Development Community, SADC countries that is. We further agreed on the following priorities. 1, though I will not count 1, 2, the last number, but 1 is a point of emphasis that there has been a pointed agreement that is currently alive. Firstly, urging the whole of SADC countries to observe the 3rd March as the day of reflection regarding Africa's roads to independence. Cooperation on the project of nominating Cuito Cuanavale on the World Heritage List, as well as the project Human Rights, Liberation Struggle and Reconciliation, Nelson Mandela Legacy Sites, as a contribution to the Roads to Independence African Liberation Heritage Program. Co-production on a documentary narrating the history of the Battle of Cuito Cuanavale. Development of the Memorandum of Understanding between Freedom Park in South Africa and Agostinho Neto in Cuito Cuanavale Memorials in Angola. Strengthening cooperation on the exchange program for library development, including the realization of book fairs. Cooperation on the rehabilitation of Vienna Transit Camp. Sharing of knowledge and experiences towards nation building and social cohesion program, including the integration of local communities. To this end, the two countries agreed to host national cultural weeks in Angola and South Africa, and agreed on the establishment of a steering committee to monitor progress on the program of action and program of cooperation implementing this program that I have outlined, and making sure that there is a system that provides reports on a quarterly basis. Distinguished guests, our today's celebration is a day of reflection. Therefore, it's a day that should be seen as part of the continent project called Roads to Independence, African Liberation Heritage Program. This program was adopted in 2005 at the 33rd General Conference of the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, that is UNESCO, which recognized the struggle heritage as being of universal value and significance. As I have indicated, this program was endorsed as well in 2011 at the 16th Ordinary Session of the African Union with the Republic of Tanzania as the convener. This program has a regional and national chapters, and in South African arrangements, this program, it is called the ALHP, as I have already indicated. That is what talks to this program of Roads to Independence, African Liberation Heritage Program. And it is in South Africa termed Resistance and Liberation Heritage Route, the RLHR. And it is directly linked to the SADC chapter. Common to all national, regional, and continental levels of this program is the documentation of a network of sites and routes of historical heritage and heritage sites of significance. This includes the honoring of people and icons who contributed nationally, regionally, and continentally to the resistance and liberation struggles against colonialism, racism, apartheid, oppression, and all forms of oppression and underdevelopment. The development and management of the interlinked heritage routes and sites are intended to transform the heritage landscape, unleashing and sustaining tourism, economic development, and beneficiation at local, provincial, national, and transnational levels. Consistent with the declaration, our government, through the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture, has initiated as well the following programs. The Africa Cultural Seasons. Through this program, we are aiming at promoting regional integration and supporting efforts towards expanded trade of our cultural goods and services. Secondly, the Africa Month program, which promotes Pan-Africanism and African cultural renaissance. Thirdly, promotion of the use of African languages. The African Language Week provides an opportunity for us to showcase and promote Africa and its languages and cultures across the continent of Africa. Fourthly, the commemoration of the 23rd March as the day of Cuito Cuanavale. It is in our intention and consideration that this day should be a day where SADC region, Africa, and the globe pay homage to those Cuban forces and the progressive humanities contribution made in accelerating the liberation processes in SADC. Fifthly and lastly, popularization of the General Hassim Mbita project. This is the chronicle of the liberation struggles in the frontline states as the Southern African Development Community was well known then. Towards conclusion, Program Director, I would like to take this opportunity to applaud Freedom Park for initiating the annual commemoration by recognizing this day of March 23rd as a day of reflection, mobilizing communities to celebrate this day. Acknowledging that in this year, we are making and being part of this celebration on the 26th of March. Let me also make a clarion call to all our SADC counterparts and partners and our fellow Cuban and Russian revolutionaries and internationalists to join hands in making this historical day an annual event. We salute all the fallen heroes and heroines of our community and our common struggles for freedom and humanity, whose names are honored here at Freedom Park. It is for this reason that the Freedom Park, as an iconic institution of resistance and liberation, it's a heritage site that was chosen as the implementing agency of the commemoration of the 23rd March Day of Reflection. As we reflect on this historic day and the comradeship, selflessness, and unconditional solidarity we forged the trenches of Southern Africa and elsewhere, we should also unwaveringly commit ourselves to our ultimate realization of our common projects of development, social cohesion, social justice, democracy, nation building, as well as regional and continent building. And we must fight against anything that seeks to stand between us as African countries. We object and reject that coming as a united force that is saying, together we are one. Let us ensure that every coming year, our reflection on this day is a reflection that shall be growing from strength to strength as more of our SADC countries will be joining us. And let it be our responsibility to say out there what this day is all about. Your being here, it makes you an ambassador for this day. Aluta continua. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Chikwatamba, for a job well done. I think the assignment that you were given, you've done very well, excellently so. Thank you very much. Now, I would like to call upon the chairperson of Freedom Park to give us a vote of thanks. And then I'll do just the final announcement immediately after she has spoken. Chairperson, please take the floor. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. In order for me to avoid taking your time by repeating the names and okay. Sorry, is the person responding? I don't want to interfere with it. Can you make it to be equal to my mouth? Thank you. I was saying, in order for me to avoid taking your time by repeating the names of different good and honorable people of the globe present here today, please allow me to join to the professional recognition by those that have spoken before me and just say, good afternoon to you all, beautiful sons and daughters of the globe. The Freedom Park in Pretoria, in the Republic of South Africa, within the continent of Africa, where this battle we are commemorating today was fought and it was won, is very happy to have hosted you all, and it's not the last day. Ladies and gentlemen, in our African culture, it is a deep show of commitment to sacrifice with your territory for the sake of others to be free and live in peace. It is even a more dedication to the cause to remain behind and clean up the blood of those who could not make it at that particular war, to even bury with dignity the remains of those that ended up not being able to be taken back to their home countries. To all these and many more actions of humanity, we say thank you. Thank you very much to the Angolan nationals and to your government for actually long before the victory of this battle we are commemorating today. Its victory gave birth to SADC, as we have been hearing and as we all know. Gave birth to the SADC region and has been standing till today. We thank you for your selflessness, for your spirit of Ubuntu, long before 1990. So many people got to know about this term Ubuntu after 1990. The Cuban people, the Angolan people, and many more were not knowing it, but they were practicing it long before 1990. We thank you, Angolans. We have no words to thank you, but through what I will put here, in the presence of all under this roof, you will realize what it means to be human without being paid for over the counter. You need not be paid to be a human. Worse to be a human being. Worse to be acting in the spirit of humanity. You need not to expect any payment. Let me share with you the reason why what I will put here today as the vote of thanks to all of you present here is so important. One, there is nothing as hurting as to see or hear what our forebears thought it was needed to be done for the humanity to benefit in its totality, but instead, due to lack of proper guided dissemination of information from generation to generation, end up being seen by those that lack this information as if it was a curse to do so. Our minister, even if he's not here, I will take the whole load of responsibility to you, as you read his speech so well, my sister, to the program director. He has left me. I'm more than positive that if what I want to put here and call it the Inter-SADC Youth Indaba, based on many issues facing our youth, but primarily and mostly this commemoration that gave birth to SADC region, if it can be successful, then all those who helped us to gain our freedom will know that this is the best way of thanking you. The Battle of Cuito Cuanavale will yield much more understanding of where we come from as a collective. It won't be just seniors, let us be honest to ourselves, except the kids that were singing for us here. Year after year, you see the senior members of all the countries that were involved, which is a challenge that we need to address. That is why I'm saying this vision that I had when I was writing this speech of vote for the proposal of vote of thanks, that we need to have the annual SADC, Inter-SADC Youth Indaba, has to be done. Otherwise, we will perish. Those of us who are senior, who always come to commemorate, will perish and will leave behind nothing. And our youth will curse us. They will really curse us. And I won't blame them wherever I will be after I'm being buried for them to curse us, because it will mean we were somehow selfish. To the Cubans, before I go to the Cuban, may the spirit of Comrade Dr. Agostino Neto live long. To the Cuban people, not only do we say, we shall need you, we shall love you for the things you have done for us, but we thank you for, under the leadership of our late comrade Fidel Castro, for selflessly showing us in action that the revolution that benefits all require the following three angles. 1, sympathy for human beings. 2, passion for justice. 3, vision unclouded by fetishist and obfuscation of bourgeois ideology. These are values and qualities that need to be shared by all generations in Africa in particular, and the globe in general. These values are more needed now than before. Given more time one day, I will explain it to all of you why I'm saying they are needed much more now than before. In this, which I call Inter-SADC Youth Indaba annually, I see you Cuban people playing an important role in sharing these values and qualities for the entire continent to be able to teach the world what humanity is. As your sharpness when the apartheid South Africa army detonated a mine and you immediately got alerted together with the Angolan army to their direction of their advancement, our youth need this sharpness. And this sharpness will be disseminated when this SADC annual youth indaba can be actioned. Our diversity, we need you more than before as SADC, as well as Africa, as the continent, united in our diversity. We normally say this as if it's an easy thing, united in diversity. It's not easy. But Angola, Cuba, Soviet Union of Russia, MK, they showed that it's doable. You can live it, but only if you are honest. We need you more than before. To ourselves, SADC region present here, we want to say in thanking you, just as our comrade Samora Machel will say, "A luta continua," let us not take this just as a slogan. No, it is an abbreviation that is for me, who have observed things. This "A luta continua" for me is an abbreviation of a long journey to be traveled. Hence the Mbuzini Saka, hence the Matola raid, and many other raids inside our country, our SADC region, our continent, and in some countries of our globe. All of these our youth have got to know and understand deeply in order for these atrocities never to happen again. In conclusion, for our vote of thanks, allow me to agree with our former President Nelson Mandela. May his soul rest in eternal peace. When the very first time when he was visiting Cuba in 1991, he said, "The Battle of Cuito Cuanavale marked an important step in the struggle to free continent and our country of the scourge of apartheid." So what we need now is to action these words that he said when he was visiting Cuba. It cannot stand as words. They need to be actioned. That is why I'm recommending and sharing with you that let us really move forward and have the Inter-SADC Youth Indaba. And I was disappointed when I realized that SWAPO in the program was not here represented. I'm sure they are present, but maybe those who are present are not the ones who were requested to give the whatever, the message. It is said because of the fact that us in South Africa, because of our leaders in exile, they requested us to organize transport to go and assist SWAPO to win their first elections. And our South African parents, uncles and whosoever, they sent their kumbis. Because if we did not do that, the Boers were going to send their Melo Yellows to the opposition party, and the issue of the freedom of Namibia was not going to be known. So I wish you can clap hands for our parents in South Africa for allowing to send their kumbis. And there was no petrol that was filled in by any government because we didn't have government at that time. Only our parents who were working donated money to the taxi associations of different townships. So let us stop this issue of taking taxi associations as bad people. Let's look at where we come from. And let us celebrate our taxi associations. The buses are not ours. The buses are not ours. We don't have any shares with most of the buses, but the taxis are our families. The drivers are our brothers and sisters who, if the taxi associations were not there, they would not be working. So instead of us criticizing them, giving them 100% negativity, let us look back and have a day like this where we are thanking the Taxi Association of South Africa for what they did. Because the Boers will be taking Namibia as their homeland to attack the entire SADC, the entire Africa, assisted by the same imperialists that were defeated in Cuito Cuanavale. We wish you all the safe travels and long life. Aluta continua. All power to the people. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, for that vote of thanks. I had to step out of this space because I had to just take another assignment from Commissar Bulelo Musi. Just adding another important historical fact about what the Angolans and the Cubans did for our liberation. He was just reminding me that on the 28th, which I think this week that we are beginning, we should be reminded of the Battle of Motale, which happened in Limpopo. Those MK cadres had been trained by Angolans and Cubans. So I think that we should applaud again the Angolans and the Cubans. And then, of course, he was indicating to me that the commemoration is not going to necessarily happen now in March. It's going to happen on the 22nd of April in Limpopo, in the venue that will then be shared with the communities. So I just thought that that assignment that I've been given by my senior, let me come and share it with yourself And then just indicate what now is going to be happening. We're now going to be going for the wreath laying ceremony. That delegation is going to be led by the CEO of Freedom Park, and the dignitaries that are going to be laying wreaths, they include the following: our DDG for Corporate Services, on behalf of the Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture, the Deputy Minister from Cuba, representative of the ANC, the representative of the SACP, Angola, MPLA. So those are the dignitaries that are going to be doing the honors when it comes to wreath laying. Thank you very much. We've come to an end of the program. Thank you.